Hi there, welcome to the RevOps show. Have you ever ran before where you start the run out really strong and feeling really good, only to finish and feel like crap, like you're just out of breath and that run was the most awful run in the world? Have you ever ran before where you started off really strong and finished really strong and you felt great and confident? There's a different feeling when you finish strong versus when you don't finish strong. And it just doesn't go for running. The same feeling goes for anything that you're working on. For us internally, there's a difference when we finish strong on a project and when we don't. So today, Doug and Jess are, you guessed it, talking about what it means to finish strong and why finishing strong is so important. So on that note, let's get ready to RevOps.
Jess, it feels like forever since we've talked. I've missed you.
It's been 2 days.
No, I mean RevOps show.
Oh, on here?
Remember,
Yeah, it's been a while.
We're the RevOps show. This has been
It's been a while. It's been a while.
Right. This is the first RevOps show where I've had the opportunity to ask you this question. How about them Cowboys?
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. I think I've been pretty clear.
Here we go!
I think I've been pretty clear. Like, I'm a fan of the Cowboys, but I've also resigned to myself to the fact that we're not going to do anything in the playoffs.
You know what's great about the fact that this has been delayed and I got to ask you that question?
What?
That question is going to foreshadow our topic today.
It is. Wow. I hadn't even connected those dots, but yes, it is.
So, bigger, more important question.
Okay.
Is Taylor going to make it back from her concert in Japan in time for the Super Bowl?
Wow. Yes, she will. Yes.
It doesn't even seem actually close.
I don't know the details. I'm just telling you.
So there's a concert in Japan Saturday night, the Sunday before the Super Bowl.
But is it Saturday night in Japan?
Well, they're not going to do it Saturday morning in Japan, Jess.
Well, I know, but I mean, I'm like,
right,
yeah,
correct.
Okay, fair.
So it's Saturday morning here.
Nah, she got time.
Yeah.
She got time. She got a private jet. She got time.
I think she'll get plenty of sleep too.
She'll probably sleep on her posh private jet. Yeah, she'll be well rested. Not at all look like she's flown halfway across the world.
I think she probably can afford a pretty good plane.
You think so?
I do.
Are you looking forward to...
Do you think she'll say this to Travis?
Clear eyes, full hearts.
Can't lose. She should. If she doesn't, I'm disappointed.
So is Andy Reid going to retire if the Chiefs win?
Probably.
Is he going to retire if they lose?
Probably.
I think there's more of a chance. So I don't think he's retiring.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so. What's he going to do?
Relax. Rest.
Is that something like he actually wants to do though? Like
probably
somebody,
not.
Know what I mean?
Probably not.
But I think there's more of a chance he retires if they lose than if they win.
Oh, really?
Because if they win, they could be the first team ever to three-peat.
Yeah.
That's almost like not ranking Pete Rose in the top 3 infielders all time.
Oh my God.
Reds.
Oh my God. So I love Larkin, so I was surprised by that ranking. I love Larkin because I grew up watching him play. I was surprised that my dad put Larkin in and not Pete Rose. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, how you could he must have been doing it from a defensive perspective only, like infield or like playing an infield position or something.
Yes, he was.
Because otherwise, well, that's not the best infielder is like infielders bat in Major League Baseball. Jeff.
I'm aware.
There's no way you rank Dave Concepcion ahead of Barry Larkin as an all-around infield player.
He explained the justification for why.
Well, I understand. All right, Jess, here's a big question for you. I got all kinds of this has been building up.
It's great. I'm excited.
What are the greatest television shows of all time?
The greatest television shows of all time? Oh, Well, you and I are going to agree on this because, like, one of them that I know you feel like is the greatest television show, and you're not alone in this. I have not actually seen. I can't get through like the second episode, so I'm going to go with.
You can't have tried recently, then.
I've tried so many times that like I've moved on.
You can't have tried in the last 3 years.
I've moved on and given up. Like I actually have in the last 3 years. Yes, I have. I can't.
There's no way that you can't get through the second episode of Breaking Bad.
I can't do it. It just doesn't. It doesn't do anything.
We'll just start at the third episode then.
Okay. West Wing. Sopranos.
I mean, you are ranking Breaking Bad up there, though, right? Even though you've never seen it.
I'm not putting it up there. I haven't seen it. Sopranos. Succession.
Oh, going with Succession.
I'm going with. I mean, you got to go with Succession. Come on. I think those are probably my top three.
Let me see if I can get her to go
Dakota
outside.
disagrees with me.
Dakota's protecting us from the FedEx truck.
Okay, great. I would also throw Sex in the City in there, but I don't like the revival, and it's silly.
Sex in the City is one of the great all-time shows. No.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
Oh, it's not.
It really is. Really is. It changes as you age too. It's a fascinating exercise to rewatch it in different stages in your life. For real.
For reals?
For real. Yeah.
What about Mean Girls? Does that change at various stages of your life?
I haven't watched Mean Girls in so long, but probably.
Have you
maybe I would now
new Mean Girls
relate to Regina
movie?
George. I have not seen it yet. No.
But you plan to?
I plan to. Yeah, it's a musical. It's a musical. I'm not rushing out to see it, but yeah, I'll probably see it at some point.
Artie, you ready?
Yeah.
Breaking Bad.
I knew that was going to be on the list.
Unquestionably. I just finished it.
Okay.
I just binged it again. I'm in the middle now of El Camino, which is the Breaking Bad movie.
Okay.
Sopranos.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
One that I'm surprised you didn't say, Game of Thrones.
So I love Game of Thrones. The last 3 episodes are rough. And so that's I was actually wrestling with Game of Thrones in my head.
So that's like saying someone doesn't make the Hall of Fame because their last season.
I understand.
Hill Street Blues.
I've never seen Hill Street Blues.
Hill Street Blues changed network television.
This is where the age gap comes into play, right here.
You know, Jess, they have services
where you can some
watch.
more.
You can watch episodes. The thing that I didn't understand, though, is, well, you haven't seen Breaking Bad, so you won't even get it. You won't even understand. I was going to make a whole joke about Jesse Plemons when he meets Walter and Jesse Pinkman for the first time. They ask him what his name is, and he says his name's Todd. And I was going to say, I'm confused by that because his name's Landry.
Oh, from Friday Night Lights. Yeah. Also, another great show. Another great show.
Another good show. I don't know that you can call it great show.
Disagree.
Like maybe the first 2 years, but I mean, it got
really weird.
Soap opera-y and it got really weird. Repetitive.
It got really weird.
I mean, there's only so long that your quarterback can be in a wheelchair and you build stories around him.
And is perpetually 19 years old, apparently, for the last 3 seasons.
That was weird.
What was that? Yep, that was weird.
Artie, Jess, what are we talking about today?
I want to talk about finishing strong. To your comment on foreshadowing.
Here we go.
There it is. To your comment on foreshadowing and the Cowboys, who you do not know how to do this.
Hates Dak for that. Hates it. Can't stand it. Wants to turn off the game whenever hates that Dak's.
Oh.
Well, you don't really watch games anymore. So that's his cadence. So every snap, he does whatever. Then he. Yeah, here we go.
It's loud and aggressive.
Finishing strong.
And I want to kind of talk about why is it so important and why is it so difficult around CRM implementation, around our client services work. And we're going to open up a little bit of a wound because this is something we struggle with.
Are we talking about are we talking about our listeners? Are we talking about CRM implementation in general? Are we talking about what are we talking like finishing strong as it?
So I want to talk about CRM implementations in general, but I think we are going to talk about us as we talk about that.
Okay, but like, is the focus on us, or are we using us as?
We're using us as the example, but the focus is not necessarily
as a prima facie case.
Yes.
I thought we were going to use the Cowboys as the prima facie case for not finishing, for failure to finish strong.
Yeah, we can talk about the Cowboys, but I don't know that is gonna. I don't think I'm gonna be able to connect that to RevOps. I could try, but.
Oh, I can connect anything to RevOps.
I know.
Yeah. Okay. So where do you want to start?
In you. So I guess first of all, why is it so important to finish strong?
I mean, there's a lot of different ways to look at it. There's the aspect of, I mean, frankly, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Think about this. Well, like, you didn't watch the game last night, so you're not going to understand this. The Lions got off to a 24-7 start. Halftime, they're leading 24-7. The 49ers in the second half go ahead 34-24, finishes 34-31. Here's the question: If you were the Lions, would you feel better or worse? Did you start off up 24-7, lost 34-31, or would you have felt better if you had been down 34-3, and lost 34-31?
I would probably feel better if it was the latter.
Right.
Because I hadn't blown the lead. Yeah.
But also it's how you finish. I mean,
right.
Shouldn't you technically feel the same?
You should. Yeah.
Like, would you rather? Now this is crazy, and you didn't see this in the research that we did, but I've seen it in other studies. Would you rather start off winning, like you go to Vegas, you're gambling, you start off up 100, and you finish up 10, or would you rather start down 100 and you finish down 10?
Oh, that's interesting. I think you're going to say it's the down 10, but that, I mean,
you'll remember
like that defies logic in my brain, but I'm sure like in the moment, that's how you feel. Cause you feel like you feel like you've lost more money if you are up 100 and then you're.
Well, right. So remember, it does defy logic. That's why we call it behaviors. We call behavioral science. If behavioral science matched logic, we would just call it logic, and we wouldn't need behavioral science. So you remember how you finish, right? And so if we finish on an upswing, we'll remember a more positive experience. We walk away feeling like, and here's the thing about $10. $10 isn't going to make the difference. Let's put it this way. Anyone that goes to gamble in Las Vegas, if $10 is going to make a difference in your life, and I'm not saying that it doesn't make a difference in people's lives, but if it does, I'm saying you probably shouldn't be gambling in Las Vegas. So we can operate on the assumption that $10 is not going to have a major impact or even a noticeable impact on your life. So you remember, like, I don't know that that's necessarily true if we were to say you start off up $1 million and finish up 100,000 versus down $1 million. Right, there might be a little bit of a difference there, down 100,000. But again, that aspect of, in one case you finish up, the other case you finish down. You like one case you've won money, the other case you've lost money. You'll actually feel better in the situation where you lost money. And that's because you remember how you finish.
Right. So this is interesting because this is in the research. They do talk about that. Frequently, you give even weight to starting strong and finishing strong. Both are equally.
The perception. Like the provider thinks of, you remember our first and our last. Yeah.
Yeah. So my question is, based on what you're saying, should you be putting more energy into making sure that you finish strong or start strong? Because like, and this is where I'll kind of use us as the example. Like we start really well. We get feedback that the way we kick off is really well. We try to get those quick wins. We've put some time into making that process really, really smooth. Do you feel like you should put more energy into finishing strong rather than starting strong based on what you just said?
So this is where we get into a scenario where I don't know that it's quite as simple. Like, I don't know that we're talking about a two-dimensional grid here.
Mm-hmm.
So the answer to your question is yes, you should work to start, you should work to finish strong. It's more important to finish strong than it is to start strong. But I think that when you look at where we focus, and I would say this is a lesson to any RevOps group, any business, like the reason that our first impression, the reason that it's important that we kick off well is it's a process perception. And actually why it's important. And even though if you think about how we start and what we do to start strong, one of the things that we do is we build a lot of context, which means we're helping people, we're teaching people what to expect through that process. So even where the challenge of finishing strong comes in, our starting strong mitigates some of that natural disruption of and we'll get to why finishing strong is so hard, especially in something like CRM implementation. But it, like, so if we started weak, if we made a mistake early that someone wasn't prepared for, it would build in like it's a process perception. There's a confidence level of like, how comfortable am I going to be in this process? How secure do I feel in this process? So I think I think you're dealing with two different psychologies. And so like this, like one of the difficulties with one of the examples that you know, they talked about longer term consulting projects.
Right.
And one of the examples they gave was a McKinsey project.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the things about McKinsey is McKinsey brings with it this huge brand name.
Right.
There's a whole bunch of perception tied into McKinsey to begin with. So like McKinsey doesn't have the same start dynamics that we necessarily have.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring
up.
So
I think there's two different jobs, but yes, in the end, and think about it. I don't want to name engagements, but there was one where I would say we were doing great. Probably the first 80%.
Mm-hmm.
The last 20% complexity and chaos started to really come in, and I think that's how we got remembered.
Yeah, and I think
even though during the whole time, the client would say, "Look, we understand this is because of us. We understand this is because of us. We understand this is because of us."
Yeah.
Like, we understand we're making it difficult. We're understanding we're making right, but so what?
Yeah. I think the two different mindsets at launch and at the end are interesting too, because I find at launch it's like, okay, we've written you a check. Now what are we getting? So you've got to show some work, so to speak. You've got to show some output, and then I think at the end it's that fear to ship is what we're dealing with usually when we're talking about CRM implementations.
So I think they're two different things.
Mm-hmm.
Because the like what you just described, I think, is the myth that they're talking about.
Okay.
What I'm saying is they're two distinctly different jobs. So we think you just wrote a big check. Mm-hmm. So, or you really, I mean, technically, let's be honest, you committed to a big check. You haven't written that big check yet.
Right.
You know, when I was a financial advisor, one of the things that I realized was that the first 90 days was a mess.
Yeah.
Because all kinds of things were moving around, and like 90% of the mistakes got made in the first 30, 60, 90 days. So we built for that, we planned for that, et cetera. And what I found was if we didn't manage that process strong and a mistake happened that they weren't prepared for earlier, then the next mistake that happened got a more like the overreaction level would increase because you just didn't like everything was new. Like our kickoff strong is about dealing with the novelty of what they're doing and who they're doing it with. It's kind of like they run into and the train, they don't know when the train is going to come. So they're looking at their watch. They're looking at their watch. They're looking at their watch.
Right.
Right. So what we're doing is really trying to manage that expectation, that path. It is the return trip effect, right? I mean, if you think about why finish strong,
right,
and what you're trying to do, if you're going someplace new, have you ever noticed it takes like 2 to 3 times as long to get there as it does to get back? Of course it doesn't, but that's right. And so like the thing to understand, and by the way, why finish strong is so important. Is it's not what they say, it's not what happened, it's how do they feel. Who was it that said, in the end people won't remember what you did, what you did or what you said, they'll remember how you made them feel. I don't know, that sounds like something Maya Angelou would have said. So I'll attribute it to her. If she didn't say it, I'm sure she would have said it if the topic had come.
I'm trying to Google for us. It's Maya Angelou.
He shoots, he scores.
All right, so let's talk about why is it so difficult? Why is this so hard? Why is it so hard to finish strong?
Well, there's a lot of reasons why it's hard to finish strong. Do you want me to start? You want me to lead to the main reasons why it's hard, or do you want me to build to the main reasons why it's hard?
Let's
do
build.
I start off?
Let's build.
So do I start strong or do I finish strong on why it's so hard?
Let's build, because what's at the end that we're going to remember?
I mean, one reason is that you have to go through the middle to finish.
What do you mean by that?
The middle is messy.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. I mean, especially if you think about a service implementation, a CRM implementation, in the beginning everything's clear. Everyone's filled with intent. You haven't had to make any trade-offs. You get to deal with a whole lot of theory. It's vision, it's perspective, you're fresh, it's new, it's exciting. Everybody's talked recently. Everyone thinks they're in alignment. No one's had to give anything up.
Yeah.
Right.
In the middle, everything feels like failure. Yeah.
Well, in the middle, everything is failure.
Oh, really? Oh, really? That makes me feel great.
Well, it is, isn't it?
I don't know that I agree with everything is failure in the middle.
So if you were to stop in the middle of anything, isn't that failure?
Well, fine. Okay. Yeah,
how do you feel in the middle? So when you go through a big house cleaning, how do you feel? I just
did this weekend.
You're like, why did I do this?
Yeah.
How do you feel in the middle of a workout? What do people not work out? I don't have time.
Right.
I don't feel like it. Well, we all talk about how when we work out regularly, we're more productive. And how when we work out regularly, we feel great after the workout. Right. It's the middle. The middle is the hard part.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to get through the middle. You have to, everything gets fragmented. Everything gets, so that's one reason. Service, like when we're talking about a CRM implementation, you're talking about a complex ecosystem.
Yep.
So time doesn't sit still. Things change. All of a sudden, it's like people used to. I mean, still to this day, you launch your website. Most people, the day they launch their website, they can't stand it because by the time you launch it, it's old. Sick and tired of dealing with it. And by the way, if it's been a really good process, your vision has changed and you have a whole bunch of other new ideas. And when you're implementing technology, you become aware of business process. All this, like you know more. Are you familiar with the phrase "ignorance is bliss"?
I am.
You have a lot more appreciation for that saying these days, don't you?
Oh, so much.
Right? So,
yeah.
So you know more now, and knowing more like the natural element of you know more about what's not working. You every problem you solve presents 3 new problems. Here's my question when it comes to CRM implementation. Finish strong, right?
Mm-hmm.
When is the finish? Let's say launch is the finish.
Yeah.
You know what the problem, you know what the myth and the problem with launch being the finish is?
You're not done after launch.
No, let's say you're done. Let's say
Okay.
you're done.
Okay.
Is launch a term that describes the beginning of something or the end of something?
The beginning. Oh my God. You're going to break my brain. I had never thought of that before.
The finish is the beginning.
Yeah.
When you talk about a consulting engagement and a plan is put together, the finish is the beginning, and the beginning means change.
Yeah.
That's the hard part. You have to do. So the beginning, the end to you is the beginning to somebody else.
Right. Yeah. That's fair.
Right. What also happens is, so I was watching in between games and during commercials, I was flipping to Ghostbusters.
The first movie? The first one?
The first Ghostbusters,
Okay.
the original real Ghostbusters.
Okay. Yep.
Do you remember what year Ghostbusters came out?
I'm going to take a guess, and it's very likely wrong. 85?
84.
Oh, so it was the year I was born. Okay, great.
So I said to Danny, I said, this movie is 40 years old.
It is. Thank you.
And she said, yeah, but it's still good. I said, no, that's not my point. I mean, yes, it's still good.
Still great.
It's still a great movie, by the way.
I love that. It's one of my favorite movies. I love it.
I mean, when Dan Aykroyd says the Stay Puft Marshmallow, and it's like one of the greatest. And his look on his face, it's like, it's
so ridiculous and great at the same time. It's awesome.
But what I said is, so if you think about that, think about that this movie is 40 years old.
Mm-hmm.
It means that the year I watched Ghostbusters for the first time, the equivalent of that, of me watching Ghostbusters today, is watching a movie that would have come out in 1944. And I can tell you with a very, very high degree of certainty that there were no 1944 movies that I was watching in 1984.
Right.
Right. And so the longer something takes, the longer it takes. So I forget what the exact principle is, but basically every year something exists, the likelihood that it will exist for that much longer increases. So like you can be very confident that the Beatles will still be big
I see.
in 50 years.
So like the fact that we're 40 years later and Ghostbusters is still a good movie, still popular.
Yeah, it's likely that 40 years from now we'll still be watching Ghostbusters at times.
Yeah.
Or we'll be watching somebody who reboots Ghostbusters.
Okay, so connect that to CRM.
Like, here's my question. How many movies from the 1930s and 40s were rebooted? Let's reboot Gone with the Wind.
I can think of one.
I'm wondering which one you can think of, because there's one that you kind of maybe technically connects, but I don't know that it does.
Star is Born. 1945. Which was technically a remake of a movie from the 20s.
Star is Born is 1945? Okay.
Mm-hmm. The Judy Garland version is, yeah.
Wizard of Oz.
Oh, yeah. Also Judy Garland, ironically.
Anyhow, so what is this?
So how do you
when an implementation takes a long time? So like the longer it takes for you to implement, and if there is no finish, so like if there is no finish, you cannot finish strong. And by the way, when it comes to CRM implementation, that is the biggest problem: is that there is no finish.
So
it just goes on and on and on and on, and so. Like that's why, I mean, that's one of the main philosophies of always be launching.
Mm-hmm. As you set that
to
waypoint.
shorten, like, let's have 4 finishes. Oh, by the way, you know what I learned here? I learned a whole bunch of things of why we're doing it right. I learned that there's 2 reasons why Disney rides are so freaking short.
What are those reasons?
Well, one reason and a primary reason is because more people you can turn over the ride more.
Yeah, sure.
But 2 90-second rides feel better than 1 3-minute ride. So we're really bad at understanding time.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things you want to do is concentrate the pain, segment the pleasure.
Yeah.
So multiple pleasure events, right? The beginning and end feel good.
Yep.
Right? The beginning, we got all of our ideas. We haven't had to pay any price.
Mm-hmm.
The end, we get to say it's done.
Yeah.
I was talking with Drew about, with dev projects. And I'm like, look, you've got to get to completes.
Yeah.
Don't just keep we're like on version 3 in the same program. I'm like, no, take that program to complete.
Yeah.
Make version 2 a new program.
It's funny.
Right?
Yeah.
Because then we get to say, hey guys, we finished.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And so you wait online, pain, it's concentrated, broken up by 2 elements of pleasure. On a ride.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, the lines are a pain in the ass, but the ride was great. And you had 2 rides to 1 wait.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically kind of how it works.
Yeah.
And then every now and then you get a free prize called the Fast Pass or whatever they call it now.
It's now it's called Genie Plus. Lightning Lane.
Right. But right. And that whole thing is, see that I got to bypass the line. So there's
exactly.
like an added bonus.
Yeah.
Right? That's the Seth Godin free prize and stuff. Right.
Yeah.
And so if you can keep if your implementation, if your finish is 3 to 4 months, okay, it wasn't that bad.
Right.
And by the way, one of the things that's nice when you're talking about 3 to 4 months, see the difficulty as you get to the end of something is there's so much nuance.
Yeah.
And then you also get to a place where the difference between fixing something and iterating on something becomes imperceptible. And before you know it, you're iterating. And now you've got one thing on version that's kind of on version 3, but it never actually finished version 1 or version 2. You have everything becomes just this one big garbled mess. And you've got 86 open threads. Yeah.
And this actually gets to another behavioral principle that was tied to this, which is duration effects. So like you're talking about iterating, which in my mind, and maybe this is because I'm living this in some places, is attached to pushing out the timeline. So if something's much shorter or much longer than expected, people pay more attention to it. So if you hit close to the expected timeline, so if you're setting 3 to 4 months and you're always launching like we talk about, and you're hitting pretty close to that timeline, it's almost like a non-event. I'm not paying as much attention to it in a negative way. I'm not stressed about it. If that timeline was supposed to be 4 months and it drifts to 6, drifts to 8, now I'm heavily paying attention to it. I notice it far more. I notice the timing far more on it.
So yeah, let me flip the topic here a little bit on you.
Okay.
Managing the CRM. So the CRM is now live. You're using the CRM.
Yep.
How do you finish strong?
Oh.
Because by the way, the projects that you're talking about right now are not about launch. We've met the timelines.
Right.
We're now managing it, adding groups as they're growing, all this, right?
Yeah.
And now we're in the middle. And we're in the middle of forever.
Right. So I think it goes to what you talked about of you have to set targets with this is what on this date, this is what we're delivering. So that could be
correct.
Group A, Group B,
whatever
is in ready to use it on February 15th or whatever.
But my point here is once you get so now the CRM is live, it's being used. We're managing this here, that, when I was a financial advisor, one of the things that I realized was winning business was actually pretty easy because you just looked at whatever happened and you said, oh, I wouldn't have done that.
Right.
Everyone knew that interest rates were going to fall, and you should be in bonds to generate the this, and that. Oh my God. Oh, S&P 500. I knew that was going to be a down year for the S&P 500. You should have shifted. I would have shifted to blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
And more importantly, actually, when you are trying to win that new client, you're talking about their future. What are their aspirations? What are their concerns? Like everything, 90 to 95% of the conversation is all about the future.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start doing your reviews with them. And the problem with reviews is 90 to 95% of your reviews are all about the past.
Right.
Right. And one of the challenges with any relationship, with any ongoing continuous relationship, is the relationship will get defined, if left to its natural consequences, by its most dynamic component. So in financial services, if you're a wealth manager, the most dynamic component is the stock market, is the performance. Right. So before you know it, your whole relationship is defined by that performance. By the way, the other thing too is in the beginning, you clean up a whole bunch of messes. Your tax planning is bad. Your estate screwed up. You have no idea about this. Right? So you come in and you fix all these things. And over time, that relationship loses its dynamic. Well, when you're managing a CRM, the same thing happens. Right? Because you go from very specific things and very clear. And one of the reasons why you've got a time constraint things is in complex ecosystems is because if you keep fixing things, you don't know why things happen, right?
Yeah.
There is no such thing as A/B testing your CRM, right? So what happens is when there's no more finish line, there's no more context. When there's no more finish line, there's no more expectation. You literally, everything is in the middle. And so now what takes priority?
Right.
Whatever the most painful thing is at that
Right. And I would say painful and recent, by the way. That's what I find most painful and recent thing.
Right. And by the way, how long does that painful thing maintain priority?
Not long.
Until something more painful comes
Right.
along.
Yeah.
Until the pain of that is lessened.
Right.
So you never actually finish anything, and everything becomes heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier.
Yep.
And by the way, no one remembers why we're doing this in the first place.
That's true.
And by the way, that's the natural nature of, like, we are trying to finish strong playing an infinite game. That's why.
Yeah. Yep. So you talked about creating waypoints and creating completes. What are some other things that you can do to finish strong? I'm apprehensive to say finish strong now.
Well, no, you do need to finish strong. So
Yeah.
so you need to create finish lines,
Yeah.
right? That's why we talk about the 3 zones of execution.
Mm-hmm.
Right, we've got the performance zone. That's that 90-day period. Like, this is the shit needs to get done. What are we getting done in this 90-day period?
Yep.
We've got the enablement zone. What are we operationalizing over the next year?
Yeah.
The transformation zone. What are we becoming? And that's all about context. That's all about vision. That's all about direction, right? You can't align your vectors if you don't all have a common point, a common destination to point to.
Yep.
And again, what's working against you in an infinite game is entropy.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
What's working against you in an infinite game is chaos. Chaos is always increasing. Entropy is always increasing. Complexity is always increasing. Friction is always increasing. Right? And so you have to, I mean, why do we call a day, a week, and a month? Why don't we just make this like, the middle of the year, Olympiad 250?
You called it out. We're bad at we're bad at managing time. We're bad at telling time.
Well, and so we, like, why do people begin new things on Mondays? Why do people begin new things at the beginning of the month? Why do they begin them at the beginning of the year? Why do they begin them at the beginning of the quarter? Because there is a big, there is a
starting point.
There's a heuristic that says, hey, And by the way, you are more likely to stick to something new, launching it in a new week, new behavior. It's more natural than just, okay, I'm going to change.
Yeah.
Or at least it's actually not more natural necessarily. It's more intuitive. It's like you link it, you kind of stack new. If you're never done with something, how can you be successful?
You can't.
So now imagine the team that's working to manage your CRM when it's never done.
Yeah.
Now, I will tell you, I think that there's an element where this thing has gone completely astray. I mean, if you look at some of what's happening in SaaS, it's ship. Every ship
Right.
is a finish strong, and the difficulty here is like it becomes chaotic on the buyer side, on the user side,
Mm-hmm.
right? As these applications have gotten increasingly complicated with bigger feature sets, et cetera. I mean, that there's a place where, like, I think what's so important here and where finish matters is it comes down to context.
Right. Yeah.
Right. It's that we're hard, like understanding where things fit
Mm-hmm.
is like that's crucial to feeling safe.
Are there other things that you can do to finish strong? So you've got waypoints created. Obviously, that's going to help create that context. Like what else? What are some other things you can do?
Celebrations, routines, rituals. I mean, one of the things that's nice about a launch is you celebrate.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, everybody. Here's what we
Christmas.
got. We got boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Here's the new capabilities for you. Hey, you guys have been asking for this. You've been asking for it. I remember we tested it out a little bit 6 weeks ago. We got a lot of feedback. Wasn't quite where we wanted to be. Hey, here's where it is. Oh, wow, this is much better than it was 6 weeks ago. But by the way, that's some of it. Mm-hmm. We don't show enough of what we do because we want to make the experience beautiful. But letting them experience it while it sucks.
Oh, I see.
Means when you get to launch, if it sucks less, it's better. You finish, it's stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, it's not what I wanted, but it's better than what it was. You know, one of the other things that happens when you let people experience that too is they begin to understand why it's hard, right? So the fact that they like if we prototype something and we share something and it's not there, they begin to understand it a little bit more, which means, you know, so you're taking them from like big picture up here. Mm-hmm. Oh shit, this is going to be really hard to, you know, you're halfway back up.
Well, so the other piece I like about that too, by the way, is getting that feedback early and getting they now have skin in the game. They now have, you get that buy-in faster because you're getting them involved in the process sooner as well.
So, you know, I don't like the term buy-in. I understand what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. I
think you get utilization faster. I mean, to me, I don't care if you buy in. I care if you use it.
That's fair. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And I'm not, it's not as anti as it sounds, but I mean, we get so caught in the like that whole buy-in thing. It has more to do to prevent things from moving forward than it does of enabling anything. And you can't buy in what you don't understand. You can't buy into something you don't understand.
Yeah. Which by the way, I would also say again, to flip that on the utilization side, like I think that's where we struggle a lot of times with utilization is they don't actually understand one context for what we're doing and why we're doing it, but also like how this actually impacts them and how this works. This is where
why are you doing this is important and is missed.
Yep.
If there's not a performance pressure, if there's no performance gap, then why are we doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And there's got to be a why for me. So if like, I don't want to use my CRM. I really don't. It's easier not to. It's just, and I don't want to hear anyone say, "Oh no, with a well-crafted, well-designed CRM, you're like, no. It is easier not to use it.
Right.
In the moment, it is easier not to use it. And I got news for everybody. In the moment is what drives everything. It's not easier not to use it if I want to, hit my performance button. If I want, but if there's nothing that's driving that,
Yeah.
if there's no gap, then there's no reason to use.
Yeah.
And I think that gets, gets lost a lot of times. It becomes, we go, it's easy to fall back to being process focused.
Yep.
Process is a means, not an end. And here's another reason why it's hard to finish strong. It means different things to different people. You've got different stakeholders with different priorities.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right? And this is why managing that up front is so important. I think, we've talked about in other episodes that you've got to clearly communicate what to expect. So much of this comes down to managing expectations. When we're like, you're going to love, we've got a new CRM. It is so easy to use. It is built for salespeople. It's going to make your life, it's just going to make your life so easy. You're going to love it. Like all I hear when people say, I'm like, all you're doing is setting yourself up for failure.
Yep.
And here's the other thing. I get love and all that, brand love and this and that. I remember, I used to be in Vistage and CEOs would get up and say, Vistage saved my marriage. These are the CEO peer groups. And I'm like, I get it. Like I was involved in a conversation with someone and I'm like, you know what? With all due respect, I'm not here to save my marriage. That's not what I'm here for.
Right.
I'm looking at joining this CEO peer group organization because I want to improve my business. And this is something else that I'm seeing as the headwind has come in. And man, it is so sad. It makes me so sad just to see how much repeat we're so bad from learning in the past. I'm seeing these companies like really double down on their go-to-market strategy, which on one hand is great. The problem is they're focused on their go-to-market strategy, not on why I want to use it. They keep trying to tell me how I'm supposed to use that. I'm like, you know what? Thanks. I don't want to use you to manage my pipeline. I've got something else I'm using to manage my pipeline. I don't care that you built that. I had someone tell me, I got it, I think from one of the apps that said, oh, we're one of the lower utilization for them. Here's the 4 other things that we, and I'm like, I didn't buy you for that. By the way, that's why I canceled you 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All the way. The core things that I was using didn't work, but hey, gee, thanks for telling me that I can do, 5 other things that I'm not interested in. Maybe if you had paid attention to why I bought you in the first place. Right. Yeah. So we're so focused on us.
Right.
And then we use all these fancy things to convince ourselves that we're being customer focused. And we're not. Why are people doing this in the first place? Why are people working with you in the first place? Be really good on why they're working with you. Maybe the other stuff might add.
Yeah. Yep. All right. I got a couple of key takeaways. So it's not what happened, it's how you feel at the end. That's all that matters. We've hit on this so many times, but creating those waypoints, creating those completes, making sure that you've got that context around what you're doing and those clear kind of defined goalposts. Why you're doing what you're doing is key. So not losing the plot, not losing that context. And then having celebrations, having rituals, making sure you're celebrating and highlighting what you're doing and sharing that up.
So what are you going to do differently to finish strong, Jess?
What am I going to do differently? Oh my goodness. Where do I start? I think the main one for me is the plot, actually the two main ones, the plot piece and celebrations, rituals. I think that one we don't do frequently enough.
And to be able to celebrate, there has to be an endpoint.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so establish a finish line that's also your start line.
Yeah.
Right. And now, by the way, now you brought some alignment in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now my finish, which is the user's beginning, is the beginning of my next launch.
Yeah.
That's why I say, Jess, always be launching.
Yeah, here we go.
You know what else I say, Jess?
What's that, Doug?
Just say no to shitty RevOps.
And that is a wrap on this episode of the RevOps Show. Was it just me, or did anyone else get their mind blown thinking about whether the launch was the end or the beginning of a project? From my perspective as someone in marketing, that gave me a whole new meaning about what launch should look and feel like. Anyways, enough about me. If you enjoyed this episode and want to keep up with us as new episodes come out, make sure to go subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any number of podcast platforms that you like. We'd also appreciate it if you rated the podcast. And if you have any questions you'd like to ask Doug and Jess about anything related to finishing strong, email me at hannah@liftenablement.com, hit us up on X @demandcreator, or hit us up at Lift Enablement on LinkedIn. And until next time, just say no to shitty RevOps.